With Brian Billick on Radio Row at Super Bowl 49 here in Phoenix, Arizona. He, of course, was the head coach of the Super Bowl 35 champion Baltimore Ravens when they blew out the New York Giants. Brian is an NFL Network analyst, and you can follow him on Twitter at Coach Billick, and you can see him throughout the week on NFL Network Super Bowl Live at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock our time, and NFL Total Access at 7 o'clock, and on the Super Bowl pregame show coming up on Sunday. You are an answer to a great trivia question.
A
lot of people don't realize you were a Dallas Cowboy for a while, right?
Well, a very short while. I had been drafted by the 49ers, and then, as was typical then, sometimes you would pick up players late in the season going into free agency. There was no real pure free agency then, obviously, as you know it. And had a great time in the offseason, went through training camp, got let go at the last cut with Coach Landry, one of the most memorable experiences of my life. And as I became a head coach, tried to remember the way that Coach Landry did it.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did Tom Landry do it? What did you learn from him?
I will tell you this, as someone who then eventually had to go on and appreciate that, and as someone who has lived it, that when you tell someone they're being cut, very rarely do they go on from there, and you're ending a dream. You're ending a life's dream, and I've had that happen to me, and I always tried to be very mindful of Coach Landry because I was the final cut going into that season, and Coach Landry, believe me, had a lot better things to do than to sit with me for 20 minutes and talk about my future, what I wanted to do. He knew I kind of wanted to go into coaching. That was ultimately something I thought. Just a classy thing to do, and I tried to remember that when I became a head coach, realizing the impact that you're having on these young men's lives, to try to make sure I could appreciate it the way Coach Landry did and not just do the dismissive, hey, nothing personal, just business, you're out of here.
What most impressed you about the Dallas Cowboys this year?
I tell you what, Jason Garrett, I think, just did. I did a piece on the coaches deserving of Coach of the Year, and like most people, I think Bruce Arians, a lot of people would recognize, but I had Jason Garrett right there. The expectations on being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and in particular, where they've been, and the way they came through it. He did a phenomenal job in building the team in the image he wanted, which was that 95 Super Bowl team. He's got his quarterback, the running back like an Emmitt Smith, the tight end, the wide receiver. The defense maybe wasn't quite as good. Dealing through all the circumstances that come with being the Dallas Cowboys, and not the least of which is dealing with an owner who chooses to do it maybe different than any other owner. I just think Jason Garrett's done a heck of a job. Like everybody, they just got to figure out what's that one thing left for us to do to be sitting on this game.
What do you think that one thing is?
Well, they've got the offensive elements in place. Obviously, they've got to get DeMarco Murray re-signed. There is a clock on Tony Romo. They built a tremendous offensive line. They've got the skill positions, obviously. Defensively, they got to bolster the defense. Rod Marinelli did a great job, but they need that dominant edge rusher. Probably need to continue to fill in at the linebacker position. Probably need a good secondary, good nickel cover guy. So I would imagine that most people would assess that defense is where they need to put their most focus.
Brian Billick is with us. You're not on board with Johnny Manziel, are you?
And this is nothing personal about Johnny Manziel. It never is at this point. I just, after having seen what has transpired the last year, and in fairness, I think the Cleveland Browns fumbled on this a little bit. They needed to play him the whole year to find out what their number one pick is capable of, because they don't know any more about Johnny Manziel than they did a year ago, and now you're going into the second year for Mike Pettin. That's a tough sequence. Johnny Manziel, in my opinion, and again, may sound harsh, but I'm just like when you cut a player, it's not my place to say what Johnny Manziel's future is, but as an analyst that's being paid by the NFL Network, and you've just asked, it's my job to say I've seen nothing in the last year by way of maturity or skill set to think that he can play in the NFL.